So today we have Digital Minister Audrey Tang, and we have Kenta Izumi, the leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party, to talk about the digital democracy. My name is Ayaka Shiomura. I will be a moderator for today. So today we have Minister Audrey Tang. Thank you very much for joining us.
ありがとうございます。そしてですね。
Also, Kenta Izumi, the leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we have Kazuma Nakatani, the member of the lower house in Japan. Thank you very much. So we only have 45 minutes, so let's start. First of all, Mr. Izumi is going to speak for 5 minutes. Yes. Minister Tang, thank you so much. Are you in Taipei?
The Cabinet Office.
はい、ありがとうございます。いや、実はですね、先日
So much. Actually, the other day, Japan, Taiwan, this is a present I got from the Japan-Taiwan friendship organization, because the other day, in the past, we had donated vaccination for 4.2 million times worth of the vaccination. So that's why we received this wonderful plaque made with stone. Yeah, actually, yeah, Ayaka also has it. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Shachote, who is in Japan, and Gijin Q, and we have a very good relationships with them, those people who are from Taiwan, representing Taiwan in Japan, and that is very thankful to us. So today we are talking about digital democracy, which is supposed to be easy to understand. And in Japan, we have a lot of challenges for the digitalization, especially for the COVID-19 area. So today, for the newspaper, Cocoa, this is the app. We started from June 2020, and we are proud to start that app. And I installed the app and in my smartphone, and as long as you have the app in your smartphone and use it, you receive the warning if you contacted with infected people. Right now, 36 million people, about 1/3 of the Japanese people already installed the app. However, according to the newspaper today, how many people are actually activating is not on the data. We do not have the data on that. And also, so far, how many warnings have been successful of the, you might have been contacted with those infected people. We do not have the data. That was a discovery we found, and we cannot validate the policy. That was a problem, we think. And because we have to protect the privacy and private information, and Japanese government considered that too much, and they have not developed a trustworthy relationship with the people of Japan, and they are oversensitive about those privacy or private information. And today, Cocoa, this app, they spent 560 million yen. That's 140 million Taiwan yuan. So, but a lot of people have not used it. So even though we spent so much money on it. So that is a point of the, improvement. That is something we would like to hear your opinion on it. And also the digital democracy. Maybe you might touch on it, join V-Taiwan. So you have a lot of initiatives in Taiwan. And in Switzerland also, the initiatives from the citizens has been already happening. However, for us, the Constitutional Democratic Party for the election that supposed to happen this summer, we would like to have this kind of initiatives. And in Switzerland, not digitalized, but they are collecting the 180,000 people worth of the signing, and it costs about more than 100 million yen. So I believe you have easier way to do it, maybe the less cost-oriented way, and you operate things like join. And do you see any issues or something you could tell us if we were to introduce those systems in Japan? That is something we would like to hear from you. And lastly, just one point, we, the Constitutional Democratic Party, we want to accept, hear what our people want to say, and also we would like to respect the diversity, and at the same time utilize data, and also internet voting system. I believe you, Minister, yourself, the voting should be done by the paper. And all the statistics and counting the vote should be digitalization. That is what you have been arguing. On the other side, like Estonia, they can vote by digital, and to increase the accuracy, you could change your attitude, your choice. You can vote, and you can change your mind and to vote by paper at the last minute. And I would like to know what you think the best or the ideal way to vote. That is a very important part of the voting system. So that is something I'd like to hear. So thank you very much again for today. And we would like to keep this good relationship between Japan and Taiwan, and would like to learn each other. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Izumi. Following, so let's, I respect with the time. I'd like to hear from Minister Tang. Actually, we have 15 minutes.
I will reserve more time for Q&A, so I will be brief. Indeed, we have more than 100 direct collaborative meetings with the joint platform's petitioners and participants, supported by a network of participation officers or POs in each of our 32 ministries. Altogether, there's around 100 people dedicating their time in the public sector to connect not just with the citizens, but also with each other across the silos. Across the silos is the most important contribution of digital democracy. You see, if all you have is paper-based democracy, the entire society only has the bandwidth to talk about maybe a few important things at any given time. The maximum may be what the Switzerland has been doing with their national referendums. I think that's the top of the analog bandwidth. But it could not, for example, talk about thousands and thousands of petitions simultaneously, simply because of the limitation of the analog tools. So digital democracy is about increasing the bandwidth of democracy. For example, we're talking directly face-to-face right now. That's higher bandwidth than an abstract platform, and whether I vote yes or no, that's just one bit. But I can see you nodding, or nodding but slowly, and so on. And these are much more bandwidth than simply a yes or no. And it allows for a shortened latency. In the joint platform, within 60 days, you're guaranteed to get a ministerial response if you collect 5,000 signatures. And if this petition concerns multiple different ministries, instead of just a dutiful response, the participation officers meet together every month to vote on the two interagency issues to work on a collaborative fashion. In a collaborative meeting, the facilitators, the work of the breakout groups facilitation, are public servants, participation officers of unrelated ministries. So when we talk about tax filing system redesign, it may be the Coast Guard from the Ocean Affairs Council holding the discussion, because they also file the tax as a citizen. They don't have to defend the silo of the tax agency. But when we talk about opening up the ocean for amateur fishing or for surfing and so on, maybe the tax agency will host the conversation with petitioners because they also like to fish and surf in their spare time. So very interestingly, we see the mediators as professional public servants taking the citizens' side, working not just for the citizens, with the citizens, as one of the citizens in the collaborative meetings. And that shortens the latency because you don't have to wait for 4 years for another round of representatives to represent the people, but rather people can represent themselves by showing up either online or offline to our collaborative meetings. And finally, it increased the connection to unrelated people. For example, in Taiwan, when we talked about the offshore islands, it's very difficult to travel to those more remote places. But through digital democracy, anyone can either put on VR glass or use their tablet to look around through live stream 360 co-presence. Even people who have never been there, who nevertheless has good ideas on how to improve the regional revitalization, can enter the same shared reality. It's not an abstract virtual metaverse. It is actually Taiwan, just a part of Taiwan that's difficult to reach for most people. So people can co-create by connecting with more people that are not in the vicinity, but their ideas are in the same vicinity. They are of the same imagined community. That's the third thing about digital democracy. In the interest of time, I will just stop here and I will look forward to more Q&A.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Much, Minister Tan. So we would like to move on to Q&A session. I read this book. This is, the title is Ms. Tan on Digital Democracy. The change in concept or changing approach is quite impressive. Democracy is something we need to preserve. Maybe you can go on streets to demonstrate and have a meeting. The importance of democracy has to be understood so that everyone would participate. That was a kind of idea until yesterday. But having read this book, I changed my idea. This concept has to be understood widely around the world, around Japan, then the democracy in Japan and around the world may mature. So I would like to ask you questions maybe stimulated by this book. So I do have some question coming from Izumi-san. Thank you very much, Minister Tang, for your explanation. The join that you mentioned is over the internet. You have to respond to the petition, more than 5,000 over the period of 2 months to get attention. Taiwan is a 23 million population country, of which 10 million has been participating in this joint platform. The COCOA in Japan, participation is one thing, or registration is one thing, but maybe that's it, or a silent participation. Or those who are participating all the time. I think there is a gap between the two. So 10 million, maybe active user, maybe only 1 million or 500,000. What is the kind of situation of the utilization is my question. And also, having heard what you said, there are offshore islands in Japan as well. There are many of them in Japan. Because of COVID, we say we can't travel to those islands because of the COVID-19. However, the agriculture of the island or the commerce of the island and industry of the island, maybe we can visit virtually using digital technology. Maybe politicians like ourselves or bureaucrats, maybe you need to have an environment in which 360-degree images can be captured. Well, having heard what you said, probably it's a common sense, but you changed my mind. Anyway, my question goes to Join. If you could answer this one first, please.
Design Join such that it takes just a few seconds to second a petition. And after you liked a petition, it also recommends like some streaming TV or a bookstore online, it will say, oh, you like this, so you might also like that. So it is a recommendation platform for people to discover more social causes along the way. And we also have the comment board. But unlike comment board in other platforms with the reply button, where people can attack each other through personal attacks and so on, in the join platform, we learned from Iceland. So you can post your supporting argument, or you can post your opposition argument. You can upvote or downvote, but there is no reply. You cannot reply to each other. So because of that, if I see a strong supporting argument and I don't like it, I cannot attack the person proposing this. I have to propose something that's equally persuasive on the opposing column for other people to upvote or downvote. So it turns the energy usually people spend to attack each other, to each other's personhood, into something that is based on the arguments, on the narratives, on getting the point across. And this allowed us to simply look at the most upvoted and downvoted comments to get a sense of what people's common feelings are. What are the common ground that both aisles can nevertheless agree on? So this seeks a good enough consensus, which promotes more people participate. Because if you see other people attacking each other personally, you will not want to engage. You will want to distance because it's not useful. It's toxic. By making a safe space, a civic space for participation, it allows more and more people to spend time on it.
On that very point, the SNS makes people attack each other in some cases by design, but 10 million people are registered on Join. And probably other SNS are different by design, but Taiwanese people wish to have SNS who do not allow them to attack each other. Is that a kind of a culture of Taiwan? Or maybe on different SNS apps, there are personal attacks happening in Taiwan as well, in like any other countries?
Yeah, I often compare Facebook to a nightclub in the entertainment sector in the city. So it's very loud. You have to shout to get heard, or private bouncers may escort you out if it gets really rowdy. It's smoke-filled room. It's hard to see each other very clearly, and they sell addictive drinks and so on. So, and I'm not against the nightclub. I'm not against entertainment sector. I think they are part of our cities. I'm not against that. What I am saying is that maybe, especially very young people, need to have proper education about the effect of smoking and liquor on people's minds, to be more mature in their mental health practitioners before going to nightclubs. And we also should have the digital equivalent of museums, of libraries like Wikipedia, of town halls like the Join platform, of public parks, and so on, not just the entertainment sector. Because if you, as a representative of the people, hold a town hall in the nightclub, people will get very loud and maybe start verbally attacking each other. But it's not a function of your people. It's the function of the space. The space is designed that way to vent some, I don't know, stress or something. But aided by alcohol, I'm sure. But that is not the place to have a democratic conversation. So we need to have equivalent public infrastructure and civic infrastructure in the digital realm. But I don't think entertainment sector is bad. I'm just saying we shouldn't just have the nightclub and do all our town halls in the nightclub.
Yes. In Japan, we do not have such a system, so we use Twitter, and a lot of people attacking each other, and it's almost like drinking alcohol, and also those chaos get even bigger. So, the Taiwanese people, do people differentiate those platforms well? Is it something happening?
Yeah, we don't have that much use of Twitter in Taiwan. There are a lot of discussions on the BBS, the bulletin board systems. For example, PTT, it's for 25 years, it's a system maintained by the National Taiwan University and other students. It doesn't have any advertiser. It doesn't have any shareholder. It doesn't even have a business model because it's non-profit. It's open source, subsidized through their academic network grants. But just like other academic grants, the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Science and Technology pay for the infrastructure, but they do not control the academic content. This is the norm of university, right? So they allow, for example, at the end of 2019, when Dr. Li Wenliang's message from Wuhan traveled to PTT, unlike other SNS, where it very easily disappeared into the chaos, on PTT, epidemiologists, people who are specialized in this, very quickly reached a consensus, which resulted in us instilling this public health measures such as temperature checks and so on for all flight passenger coming in from Wuhan the very next day, the first day of 2020. And that is what a good collective intelligence in the civic infrastructure can get you if you don't spend all your time on the more nightclub-like places online.
ありがとうございます。
Okay, Minister. Also, the other thing I wanted to ask is the platform for people to raise their opinion. Also, as mentioned, the internet voting system. That is something I would like to hear. So actually, you mentioned that you don't have to wait for the election that happens only every 4 years. So even every day, you can raise your opinion and express it, and also you can change it. So what the lawmaker's job and also what president's job would be, then also the net voting system, how it should be. Do you have any opinion for that?
Yeah, I think in the double diamond design thinking schema, to discover and to define is the first diamond. And then to develop and to deliver is the second diamond. That is to say, I think the job of professional representatives, the legislators, indeed the president, resides in developing coherent solutions and regulations and laws and budget, and also work with the administration and local government to ensure delivery. However, while you can, of course, have an open mailbox where everybody can write you a letter, it's very difficult if you have millions of people writing you to get a sense of signal among the millions of incoming mails. But that was the only way before the internet that we can get the ideas from our constituents or phone calls. It's very time consuming. And the most important drawback is that each person writing you or calling you doesn't have access to the millions of people before them who have also expressed the same difficulty or to report the same problem and so on, because it's all individual to individual connection. Now, in the joint platform, because it's public, it has upvoting, it has downvoting. So anyone can start with the rough consensus of people before them who have thought about this problem, and their feedback would then be a complementary input to whatever is already there. And so people have a co-creative relationship in digital democracy platforms to discover together what are the problems and to define together what's the important values we hold despite our different positions to solve this problem. But it is not the solution. It's not the implementation. It is not the regulation. Indeed, it's not law. What people have is a set of kind of good enough consensus, a shared feeling on what success look like, the how might we do something definition. So that's how we connect those two diamonds. The first diamond, the exploration and the definition of common values, is digital democracy, but representative democracy still works on the development of coherent solutions and laws and the delivery of such.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Nakatani, Kazuma Nakatani, he wants to speak probably, yes. Thank you very much. Minister Tang, thank you so much. Yeah, Mr. Izumi and also Ms. Shiomura, I was so intrigued to ask you a question following them. So amongst the Japanese lawmakers, I'm probably the biggest fan of you amongst all the members. So after I graduated from junior high school, and I started working, then become a politician, and there are the page to talk about each Diet member, and you mentioned respect the politicians who respect. I was supposed to say Mr. Izumi, who is a leader of our party, but actually I said Audrey Tang. That was my answer. So that's how much I respect you. So I read your books all the time. So having said it, related to what Mr. Izumi said, you know, the net voting, your opinion, yeah, I heard very interesting, and also those fairness in the society and also accuracy of the system. Unless you have the coherency in those two, yeah, we cannot install in the reality. So that is something I feel the same. At our party, we had submitted the bill to promote the internet voting. And for the next 5 years, we would like to spend those time to make it realized. So meaning that to have the internet voting to be possible in Japan. So digital democracy, is something to complement what downside of the representative democracy by technology. So the voting is very important, and at some point we would like to realize a digital voting. But for Taiwan, maybe if you look at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, at some point, do you think you could get the understanding by the people of Taiwan and turn into the net voting? That it might be possible, what I think. What do you think about it?
Voting for budget and voting for priority and voting for each other's agenda rather than voting for people. So, which is why I say these two are complementary. In Taiwan, paper-based voting for, say, the president has a very high legitimacy because in each and every of our counting ballots in the booth and so on, when we're counting the paper ballots, people, YouTubers, can just film the entire counting process with multiple perspectives. So people really trust the fairness of the counting process, because when different parties, YouTubers, agree with each other on all the different counting stations, you cannot dispute the result. On the other hand, it really is time consuming. Which is why I guess we don't do this kind of voting every day, right? We only do it a year, per year or so, like a referendum year and then a voting year and another referendum year, another voting year, because really it's expensive. On the other hand, if we're just choosing, for example, which ideas are the best to sustain the 17 development goals, then we can literally do that every day. Right? Because it's simply a poll in which that the survey questions are written by the people. So it's a wiki survey. The survey not written by posters, but by the people themselves. I can propose a petition, a presidential hackathon idea, a sandbox application, a participatory budget idea, and then my idea become one of the survey items where people can vote through any of those new voting methods online. But because it's inexpensive, we get to do that all the time. But we cannot use this to replace the presidential voting because the counting process here is not as legitimate as the YouTubers filming the paper counting. Only when the legitimacy here are at the same level or above the paper-based counting can we talk about replacement. So that is the restriction, the limitation that we're working with. But because people use this internet voting all the time, so I think in a decade or so, people will have a sufficient amount of cryptographic experience to audit the counting process. And then maybe we can talk about augmenting like Estonia does, but it's not a short-term work and it's not yet a problem because we use paper-based voting only once every year anyway.
ありがとうございます。おっしゃる通り、国民の皆さんと一緒にテクノロジーに触れて、それでみんなで見識を深めながら、こういうものだったら使っていけるねということを国民の皆さんと合意形成を得ながら、まさにグッドイナフで進めていくということが重要だなということを私たちも思っていますので、できるところから台湾みたいに始めていきたいなと思います。ありがとうございます。
はい、ありがとうございます。デジタルを使って民主主義を深めていくって非常に重要なことなんですが、日本は残念ながらまだそこまでできていないなっていうふうに思っています。警戒感がやっぱりあると思うんですね、デジタルに対して。こういうところがちょっとなかなか日本難しいなと思っているんですが、泉代表はやっぱりその、とかデジタルの面で、我が党としてもですね、もうちょっと進めていかなきゃいけないんじゃないかなっていうふうに思ってくださっていると思うんですが、これはもう丹大臣がいらっしゃいますので、ちょっと課題と。
In terms of technology, so now Minister Tan, the Taiwan, 23 million people. Everyone is well versed with digital technology, but generational change or generational gap may exist even in Taiwan. Maybe those who are older than 70 years of age may be sort of deterred by participating by digital. So digital divide is one of the issues by our party as well. Like COVID-19, the hospital and also the NHA system is exchanging information over the fax. And manual entry of the data is very costly for COVID-19 reimbursement. And therefore, everyone is having a very heavy workload to do this. But we need to do this because Japan said that there are people who are not able to do digital, therefore we have to do this. But how are you able to do this, respond to this situation? How are you win the participation of all the people in this?
Back in 2003, when SARS happened in Taiwan, indeed, the paper-based healthcare is a big problem for all the reasons you just described. But at the time, the small island of Penghu, the Pescadores Island, already started piloting the IC-based universal health card. Like your My Number system, the IC card for universal healthcare can only be used for the health-related and other authorized by the Administration of National Healthcare public service purposes. It must never be used for e-payments or commerce or advertisement or whatever. And so people begin to trust the IC card after SARS, I believe partly because SARS showed us a purely paper-based record-keeping system is untenable during the SARS crisis. Now, fast forward many, many years, right, since 2003, almost 2 decades now, it's a long time, the National Health Insurance Administration never had a cybersecurity breach that resulted in people's distrust of the system. So now everyone, even my grandma, almost 90 years old, trusts the IC card, the national health card. Also because when she goes to a clinic and so on, she will also observe that the clinician, the doctor, also use their own virtual card or physical card to sign the transaction. So at any given time, my grandma can ask her delegate, maybe me, to view the transaction records of her visits to traditional medicine, dentists, and the doctors. And so that also improved the trust, because trustworthiness is earned by mutual accountability. And so a couple years ago, we virtualized the IC card. Anyone with an app can show a QR code with their photo on it over the camera. And so the clinician on the other side, or psychiatrist, can just scan that QR code. And it also counts as a swiping of the IC card over the internet. It can be used for diagnosis, for delivering of drugs and things like that. Now, in Taiwan, we now even relaxed the photo ID requirement a couple of weeks ago, because more and more elderly people are now comfortable with the virtualized NHI card. So for us, it is not paper versus digital. It is a digital card versus a QR code on your phone. And the system interoperates seamlessly between the two.
Mm, なるほど。ありがとう。
Okay, thank you very much. If I may, may I ask you a further question? One question is, in Japan, national voting law, there was an issue. One argument there is that there is a possibility that the foreign capital might interfere the national voting. For example, on the internet, if we express various political opinions, foreign opinion may be expressed in Japan, and that may be influencing Japanese people's opinions. So that is a concern. So foreign countries' influence or foreign capitals' influence, how to control is an issue, or maybe do nothing about controlling as a system. You think it's not necessary. So I just wanted to know your opinion.
In Taiwan, the political campaign must file transparently its donation and expense. Part of our Sunshine Act calls for what we call a open data, structural data, machine-readable data for all the campaign donation expense records, which everyone can download for all the legislator campaigns and mayoral campaigns and so on. You get to see exactly who donated and the expense. Now, we ban foreign sponsorship on those donations. Foreigners simply cannot contribute in those campaigns. Now, because it's open data, investigative journalists back in 2018's mayoral election analyzed this data, correlated with the advertisements, say, on Facebook during the election session. And they concluded none of the social media advertisements were filed as campaign donation or expense. A lot of it came from outside of our jurisdiction. So it became a loophole. Like if you are a foreigner, although you cannot donate to any campaign, in 2018, you can buy Facebook advertisements for the campaigners, which is obviously unfair and unaccountable. So we talked to Facebook saying, look, I don't know what you're doing in other jurisdictions, but in Taiwan, our campaign donations, we ban foreign interference, and they must be disclosed really quickly as open data. And Facebook's civic integrity team agreed. And so the very next year, 2019, because maybe they know if they don't comply, they will face social sanction, right? They implemented the same standard. So leading up to our presidential session, all the political or social advertisements are treated de facto as political contributions published in real time on the open data, and only local people can contribute to those advertisements.
ちゃんとルールを
Okay, you already set the rule. So that is very interesting. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. So time is passing, but the digital democratization is something we would like to discuss before we finish. So I'd like to pass the microphone to Mr. Nakatani. So I was actually surprised by reading the book. You have a system called a sandbox. And Japan designate a certain area to try something new. But unlike Japan, in Taiwan, you designate people or idea, and those people can try their idea. So I did not have such an idea. So I was very surprised to know it. So I'm very thankful to my colleague for me to introduce such a wonderful book, because it's a one way to promote democracy. So I would like to continue discussion to promote the democracy from here. Thank you very much. So in Japan, yes, we have some kinds of the sandbox and studying the other countries' cases. However, we are not there yet. So in such a context, I was very impressed by your words. Those SNS generation and also elderly people, yeah, they compete on the same page. So, and also create together, because when we talk about DX, digital transformation, those people who are behind in the digital, savvy, those elderly people, frankly speaking, they are willing to do it, but they do not understand it. So how can we get to the good enough part for this matter, digital transformation or digitalization? So I like to promote the digitalization within my own party. And you always talk about 3 Fs, fast, fair, fun. So that is something we always say. And so fast and fair and fun. So I feel you are one step ahead of us, because unfortunately in Japan, some of the systems are not open, and sometimes we see the unfair situation. So we like to have the clean, fair, open. That is something I like to pursue. So it should be open to everyone, and we should try to build an open government, and we have to build the momentum for that. So in Taiwan, is there any, to start is always the hardest part. And I would like to know how you started and how you get to where you are right now.
First of all, I really want to thank Japan's support, both in the recent Summit for Democracy and the future for the internet, and many international multilaterals where I also participated and signed. I consistently see that Japan is leading not just the region, but the entire democratic network toward not leaving anyone behind. This is very important. Leaving no one behind is a shared value between Japan and the Taiwanese people. Now, in Taiwan, I believe it's the disasters like SARS, or the September 21st earthquake, or the typhoons. And basically, each time after a very large disaster, innovations happen. People of different religion, different faith, and so on have to work together anyway. The old system broke down, and we have to use the internet because, well, the internet was designed for resilience. The internet is designed for the kind of end of the world scenario, right? So if internet was designed to survive a nuclear holocaust, right? Certainly a typhoon or earthquake is nothing. So basically, we use the internet fully only after, whenever there is a disaster, and then the society reconfigures around the local innovations that we had to counter that disaster. And then we just work to scale it to the entire country. Like the disaster zone become a strategic zone in the ideas of Japan. Now, I see you nodding because you also have natural disasters of the same types as we do. So that's something that we should collaborate on more in the future.
Thank you so much. We love to hear more from you, but the time has come. So I understand that Mr. Izumi wanted to ask you a question about COVID-19. Yes, at our party, with Taiwan or the New Zealand, Australia, yeah, we had always aimed at zero COVID-19. And sometimes people misunderstand the Chinese zero COVID-19. We are not meaning or aiming to lock down the city. We want to manage or share the borderline to protect the people. So in Taiwan, the zero COVID-19, do people get confused between the Chinese type and also the Taiwanese type of the zero COVID-19?
In 2003, we had to lock down an entire hospital. It was a tragedy that many people remembered. So from the very beginning, we are like, never again. So the zero also means zero lockdown. In the past 2.5 years, we've never for a single day banned free movement from people's home to their neighbors or to other places. The freedom of movement was never restricted during Taiwan's counter-COVID situation. Just like we fought off, as you mentioned, the foreign interference on SNS without a takedown. We never in our administration say, oh, we should take down that website, we should take down that website in response to the SNS conspiracy theories. Rather, we worked very quickly to put humor over rumor. We notice a viral disinformation and we put on a public notice so people know it's trending. But we add to the conversation. We never take anything down. So I think people in Taiwan instinctively do not like lockdowns or takedowns. And so that's how we develop our model to fight both the pandemic and the infodemic.
どうですか、代表。
いや日本も
Yes, in Japan, probably for the this value for the digitalization is the same, and how we could connect with the democracy is very important. And we learned a lot from you, humor, fun. So those we should introduce more into our society to make the democracy to be more understandable. Thank you so much. We would love to hear more from you, but the time has come. So it was very, very interesting discussion and speak. And Mr. Nakatani said we are one step behind, but maybe we are many more steps behind from Taiwan. And this book is very insightful. So I look forward to talking to you again sometime in your future. So lastly, Mr. Nakatani would like to express his word of gratitude. Minister Audrey Tang, thank you so much. So Mr. Izumi is a leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party. He's a very forward-looking leader and want to introduce a lot of new things. And in such a context, your insights and also wisdom, we believe it's superb at the world level. So even in the future, we like to learn from you. And in Japan, we like to make the good policy to provide a better lives for our people. Thank you very much. Thank you again.
Live long and prosper. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you so much. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
はい。